Welcome to a Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm going to start a new series again. I know I keep doing these, but there's all these different great authors that I've loved over the years, and I want to cover their work. And in particular, I want to get into a lot more detail with each of those authors. And it actually helps me in doing this journey through the author's work to be doing these videos and reviews and systematize them in the order of publication. It helps me to understand the author in a new way. So the author that I'm starting with this video and his very first story, titled The Monster God of Mammurth, which was published in the August 1926 issue of Weird Tales magazine. No, I do not have a copy of that magazine. I doubt I could afford a copy of that magazine if one were available. There actually most of the original run of Weird Tales, the original copies of those magazines sell for hundreds of dollars in most cases. So I have to be happy with reading it in The Best of Edmond Hamilton by Del Rey Books, which was edited by his wife, Leigh Brackett, in 1976. And they didn't marry until the early 1950s. And Leigh Brackett didn't start writing, didn't start publishing anyway until 1940. Edmond Hamilton was already publishing in 1926. So he was considerably older than Leigh Brackett. Born in 1904 on October 21st, which is close to, I'm recording this on October 19th. It's close to his birthday. He died February 1st, 1977. And he dates way back to the very, very beginnings of science fiction, in the magazines anyway, and stands as an important figure, although most of his stories, and most of his best stories at that, were published in the 1930s, and they were definitely space opera. He did make the transition beyond 1940 into more sophisticated science fiction writing, but most of what he's remembered for is the stuff he published in the 1930s. The Monster God of Mammurth is his very first story published, and in it you have two explorers in the North African desert, and they're out looking for mummies, tombs, or whatever they can find, and they come across another explorer. And this explorer is he's very weak. He's been walking in the desert for a long time. He's out of water, he's malnourished, he's dirty, he's hot. He's not doing so well, but he has a warning about the Agadi Desert and a city called Mammurth, the ruins of which still stand in the desert. Now, this isn't a real city. Okay, this is fictional city. He makes this up. Fictional ruins of a city in the desert. And the third explorer who they run into, the guy that's in bad shape, he relates his story. And he tells a story of having seen an inscription that says you should stay out of Mammurth. So what does he do? He goes out looking for Mammurth. And he finds it. He finds the ruins. And he goes into the city and he finds an invisible tower. The tower is there. He can feel it. It's like a stone tower, but you cannot see it. And so he finds the doorway and he goes in and he finds some stairs and he goes up the stairs, which is really bizarre because it's like he's walking in midair, but he's not. He's walking up the solid steps of this tower. and there's something in there with you. I'll stop at that. This is a very good first story. Reminds me a lot of H.P. Lovecraft, but without Lovecraft had a style to his stories that makes it distinctive. It's considered an antique style, and a lot of people don't like it, but it is what makes Lovecraft so dark. Because you rarely have anybody dying in a Lovecraft story. The darkness comes from the way he writes, the structure of his prose, the um, descriptions that he writes, how he writes them, the words he chooses. It's the atmosphere of his stories that makes them as dark as they are. Because you don't have descriptions of people with their intestines being ripped out or head flying off or, you know, strung up in a web with things keeping it alive, you know, keeping the person alive. You don't have descriptions of that in Lovecraft. It's all atmosphere. And it's a brilliant atmosphere. And Hamilton does a fairly good job of that sort of thing here, but not as good as Lovecraft. So this is like trying to write a Lovecraft story, but falling short. Even so, um, it's an enjoyable story. It really is. It's a good story. If you like Lovecraft stories, if you like old weird tales fiction, Monster God of Mammurth is a must read for you. This is not a top tale, but it is very good and it is recommended. So, have you read The Monster God of Mammurth? Want to hear your thoughts about the story? Put that only, not criticisms of me or Emily or the channel. Just, we don't care about that. Just talk about the story, old time weird tales, um, Edmond Hamilton, the crossover between science fiction and horror and fantasy that you get with something like this. Those are all good topics. And any other kinds of related topics you can come up with to talk about in our comments section, please put it in there for everybody to enjoy and learn from. We want that kind of dialogue with this. I don't care if my lighting isn't quite right. I don't give a rip about that. What I care about are these stories and the authors and your thoughts about them. So put that down, and I hope you'll come on back for more Edmond Hamilton. His #2 story is again in Weird Tales. It's called Across Space. So it sounds like it's going to be another science fiction story in Weird Tales. And I hope you'll come back and join me.